So good morning and welcome to the Foundry in Dublin and welcome to Google. For all of you who haven't been here before, I hope you get a chance to see a little bit of the city and enjoy a little bit of Irish hospitality. You certainly will this evening with us for sure. My name is Sandra Whitney and I'm going to do Irish dancing for you for the next 20 minutes, a little bit of river dance. No, I'm only joking. I'm going to talk a little bit about the app landscape, where it's come from, what it looks like today, and a little bit about some of the things that we think you need to be mindful of in the future. And the role that I do here in Google is I lead the publisher business team. And essentially what that means is we work with the largest content creators in the world who have web content and who have app content. So that's all of you in this room today. And what we do is we help those publishers through partnership to monetize their content. So, as I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the past. We're just going to look a little bit about the evolution of the app industry. We're going to look at some stats here today, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the future. This, of course, is the mandatory slide where you have to have some kind of a reference to popular culture. It's actually mandatory in Google. You have to have one of these in every single presentation. And I'm sure all of you know this is a clip, this is a picture from the movie Back to the Future, right? Now, I know what you're thinking. For you savvy guys in the audience who know that Back to the Future was actually released in the year 1985, bear with me. There's a reason why I'm using this slide, so just bear with me. It'll all come together, trust me. So, roll back, 1995, 40 million users online. 1% of the global population in the world were online, and most of them were in the US. And we had publications like Newsweek predicting that this digital thing was never going to work, that users were never going to stop shopping in malls and in brick and mortar shops and actually move online. This thing was predicted not to work. 61% of users, as I said, were USA users. So it was pretty simple to create content. Well, maybe not so simple back then to create content. And in order to access the internet, your only way was to sit in front of those slow modems, wait for the content to download. And if you were offline, if you were away from your computer, you were offline, right? And we had companies like GeoCity and Alta Vista, who helped communities create content, and Alta Vista, which was the only means or one of the best means to find content on the web. I'm glad to see even back then they were thinking about advertising. So, of course, they're not around today. They've been purchased by Yahoo, and all of their technology has been integrated into Yahoo. But we all know what happened 2 years after 1995, a little startup called Google created a search engine called Google Search, and the rest is kind of history after that. So, this is the Back to the Future theme I'm talking about, because now is the future. And as you can see, even from the date on the Back to the Future, for those of you who know the movie, you'll know about 4 weeks ago, we actually hit that date in Back to the Future, October 21st, 2015. Now is the future. And it's amazing when you look back at that movie, at some of their predictions that have actually come, not all of them, but some of them have come true. So they looked kind of space-agey and crazy at the time, but when you think about the fact that they were actually suggesting that people would talk to each other on video. Crazy idea, huh? I'm sure all of us do it every single day. They also predicted that wearables, Marty McFly had his wearables in the movie. They also predicted wearables, and that's becoming an everyday part of our lives too. But I don't think that even the scriptwriters of that movie could have predicted that today, on the 21st of October 2015, there will be over 3.2 billion users online in the world. The first billion took a while. The second, not so long, 5 years. And we hit the 3 billion mark in the middle of last year. What's really changed, though, is the mixture and the geolocation of those users. 51% of all users online are now from the Asia-Pacific region. The US actually only makes up 10% of all users online right now. So that's a massive, massive change in terms of content creation and thinking about where your users are, how they behave online, what they're looking for. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. That's part of what we do here in Google, and we're going to help you think about those things and give you some food for thought today. And the world has gone mobile. We know this, right? Scary fact, there are now more connections, mobile connections in the world than humans. And we know that all of this has been accelerated by, all of this growth is coming from mobile devices. 88% of all new connections are actually from mobile devices, which is why we're all here today, right? So we know this. Apps has taken over. You've all seen this stat. 85% of user time spent on a smartphone is in apps. Great. Brilliant opportunity for all of us, of course. But we all know when you read the finer print of a lot of these reports that are out there, that users spend probably most of their time in 5 apps. In fact, user behavior hasn't really changed that much in the last 4 years. The average user in mature markets, so this is US data, downloads less than 9 new apps per month. And in reports that we've published also, our users have told us that they actually use less than 30 apps per month. So that's hard, right, when you think about it. Everyone has probably their top 5 apps, their key apps. I'd hazard a guess that every single person in this room uses 1 or more of these apps. So it's hard, right? It's hard to find your audience. It's hard to engage your audience. It's hard to keep your audience. And that's what we're going to talk to you about here today. We're going to run workshops. We're going to give you some advice. And we're going to help you with that. These facts are pretty astounding when you think about it. 95% of apps are abandoned within 1 month. And 25%, our users told us, our developers told us in a survey we did last year, 25% of all downloads that they generated were never even used. Think about that. Think about the investment that you guys are making in user acquisition. Think about the cost of it. Think about the amount of work that your teams are doing to acquire these users. It's never been more important to think about your user, to think about what your user's looking for, finding the right users, finding new users like your current users, and finding innovative ways to keep them engaged and to keep them coming back to your app, making that app into one of those top 5 that they're going to use as their most loyal apps every single day. So we're going to help you with that today. We're going to talk a lot about re-engagement and how to reach your users. And another really interesting fact, and something that we really need to be mindful of, is that these new users who are coming online in these fast-growing countries, Asia Pacific in particular, they're young. So over 50% of users in India are less than 23 years of age. And 60% in China are under the age of 29. When you compare it to the mature markets, the US and the UK, the markets we're probably, and the users we're more familiar with, we can't build apps for these kind of audiences anymore. We need to think about these new audiences in emerging countries who are going to have different needs and different asks. And they demand a lot of their mobile devices and their phones. These guys are connected all of the time. They want all of their devices to be connected. They want their mobile phones to become the remote control to their lives. They expect to be entertained by their phones. They expect their phones to help them with things like navigation, taking care of their home, making sure the electricity is working, lights are turned on, heat is working before they get home. They're a sporty bunch. They like to run, they like to do sport, they like to take exercise, and they love to measure every single thing about that. Stats on distance traveled, heartbeat rate, and also, obviously, how much faster you've done it than the guy sitting beside you. Really super important, right? And publishing that information. So user behavior is really being driven by a lot of the needs of these new emerging audiences. And we've seen that fitness apps have actually made it, they've jumped 3 places up the rankings. They've made it into the top 10 categories of app on Google Play in terms of download just last quarter. And they're really rising the ranks from a monetization perspective as well through subscriptions for apps like MyFitnessPal and apps similar. And all of that, as Mika said, is leading to innovation. So there's new companies coming online, like iTunes, education. We all know the Uber story, right? But also, you've got all of these new emerging companies. Probably not that many of you have heard of the third app, which is called Daily Quest, an Indian app. And what they do is they actually aggregate news content from all over India. And one thing that they did when they started out first is they realized that less than 20% of the population in India actually speak English. So creating content for Indian population in English was actually excluding 80% or more of their audience. They were also mindful of the fact that most users in India struggle with bandwidth and struggle with internet speed. So they started by innovating and building a platform that allowed them to consume this news content without always having a really, really strong internet connection. And Solar Launcher, another company who's innovating. And there's obviously some hard falls for companies who haven't continued to innovate. Some of these you may know. Boozoo, hadn't heard of that one before. Go-Go Cities, Yahoo News, we all know the story there. It's leading to innovation and it's leading to new business models. And it's leading to a lot of new companies really disrupting the industry. Airbnb, we all know the story there. Still not sure whether I like that new logo. Slack, a company that's really, really changing the way that teams communicate and the way that teams collaborate. Square, probably all of you know the success story of Square. I'm sure that when they finish partying over the IPO and all of them making lots and lots of money last week through their IPO, they're going to get back to innovating and they're disrupting the payments industry. I love this app, Instacart. Again, one of the fastest growing apps in the American, they really only service the American market at the moment. But what these guys are doing is they're actually getting a community of shoppers, people who love shopping, have smartphones and have cars, and people who hate shopping, like me, and they're partnering with all of the big department stores and big stores and local stores, Whole Foods, all the hipster shops that all of these digital users like to purchase from. And you can place an order and tip in advance and place your order and have it delivered to that office to your afternoon or that evening to your home. I hope they come to Ireland soon. So all of this is creating opportunity. All of this is creating opportunity to monetize. And in a recent survey we did with our developers, we asked them what types of monetization they were actually doing. And as you can see, it's quite diverse. There's a spread. There's no right answer. It depends on your app. We know that, and that's where we're going to help you even to try and at least understand the criteria for each today. But not surprisingly, the 4 main types of monetization, direct advertising being number 1, in-app purchases and subscription quite closely behind, and ad network advertising followed by the others, investor and a mixture of some others. The good news is, from a mobile advertising perspective, that the mobile ad revenue market industry is set to grow to $200 billion by 2019. It's valued at roughly $70 billion today. So a lot of advertisers, all of them working with us, I would imagine, ready to actually spend and monetize spend and drive engagement on their app, spend and acquire users, create and promote their products, but also an opportunity from a monetization perspective for all of you to make advertising available if that's the type of monetization you choose for your given app. And there's tons of room for growth in the industry. These are US stats, but it's quite stark when you see it's a combination of user time, it's a comparison of user time spent across the various types of media versus advertising digital spend. And you can see print is in for a rocky road ahead, and that's where we're working with a lot of our news publishers and our traditional publishers to help them actually transition into this new world. But you can see here, mobile spend in the US is only 8% versus 24% of user time spent on mobile. So there's a huge lag, but that's changing, and we're seeing that accelerating all of the time. So today is the future, but let's think about and look forward a little bit. Are you ready for the next billion users? Because they're going to be coming, and they're going to be looking for apps. They're going to be looking to engage with your content. It's a different landscape, though. The next billion users, they're not going to have the same disposable income in emerging markets as in the mature markets where most of us are making money from our users today. The average GDP in these countries is going to be something like $13,000 compared to $44,000 for richer markets. So a lot to think about in terms of your value proposition and in terms of your pricing. And we're committed in Google in terms of making sure that this ecosystem will thrive and grow. So one thing that we have done in Google is we've developed the Android One phone. It's a high-quality phone that retails for less than $100, and it's live in 19 countries now. And whatever you think about the Android phone, the stats speak for themselves. 25% of new smartphone activations in China last quarter were sub-$100 phones. 50% of all new smartphones in India, which is the fastest growing internet population in the world between India and China, 50% of all new smartphone activations were sub-$100 phones last quarter. So again, in terms of thinking about your users and thinking about the technology that they're going to be using, these are all food for thought. Localization, super important too. Only 20% of the world's population actually speak English. How do you think your app is going to look to the other 5.5 billion people in the world? Pricing, as I said, we talked about GDP. So a lot to think about in terms of your pricing and making sure that it's appropriate for the market, for your users. And payments, there's only 1.5 billion credit cards in the world. Not every user has a credit card. And this presents challenges too when you think about these markets where there isn't even a credit card infrastructure in a lot of these markets where you're going to be looking to acquire users. Partnership with local players is going to be super important, also from an integration perspective. And distribution, so we all know Google Play is not live in China now. So again, China being one of the fastest growing markets, partnership with local players in the Chinese market for distribution is also something super important that you need to think about. And again, my team is here today. We've got a pretty big Google team, but we work very, very globally. So if you are thinking about your China strategy, talk to us, and we can help you with that. So, a lot of food for thought, a lot of things for you guys to think about. It's never been more important to think about the pillars of develop, engage, and earn. And that's what we're here for today. That's the theme of today. So I want to thank you all really for coming and taking the time with us. We're going to workshop most of these in the afternoon. So, and we'll be able to help you with specific questions. We've got lots of technical experts around. So I really just want to say, enjoy the day, ask us questions, give us your feedback. We really want to hear the good and the bad. We're here to help you, we're here to partner with you, and we're here to help you grow your business. Thank you very much.